Hi, good afternoon. Today I would like to talk about the body of a duck, and I would like to specifically talk about how ducks maintain their internal temperature in cold conditions. Let me explain what I mean by that. Ducks generally, even in cold conditions, for example, in icy conditions, if a duck stands, the duck doesn't feel the chill of the ice. The duck doesn't feel the chill of the ice to its feet. And secondly, it is also able to maintain a warm body temperature despite the cold conditions outside. And today in this video, I would like to talk about how the duck is not able to feel the chill of the ice when it stands on it. It has a webbed feet, and so I would like to talk about that. Then about how it's able to maintain the warm body temperature it would have even in the cold conditions. So firstly, let us start from the feet. If you if I were to give a direct answer why the duck does not feel the chill of the ice while it stands on the ice, is that the temperature of the feet of the duck as well as that of the ice, temperature of ice, both are similar. Well, this is quite non-intuitive because I told you that the duck is able to maintain a warm internal body temperature. So if the body temperature is warm, which means the blood in majority parts of the body of the duck is warm, how is it that the feet are able to have a temperature similar to that of the ice, that is cold temperature? Well, a duck has a mechanism to keep their feet cold under such cold conditions, and here is how the mechanism works. Firstly, there is this heart that pumps blood into different parts of the body of the duck, and it pumps blood at around a 40 degrees centigrade, that is warm, so it's warm blood. But what really happens at the legs of the duck is, while the heart sends warm blood through tube-like structures called arteries, the heart also receives a little cooler blood than what it sends out through another kind of structures called veins. These veins are also kind of tube-like structures at the legs of the duck. Both the arteries and the veins are very close to each other. That is the speciality of the in the legs of the duck, and this has a profound consequence. What really happens is, when the warm blood in the arteries pumped by the heart at around 40 degrees centigrade reaches close to the section where the arteries or the tube-like structures, you can also call them blood vessels, where the arteries are close to veins, which only happen at the legs of the duck. There is a heat transfer from the hot blood in the arteries to the relatively cold blood in the veins, and because there is a heat transfer, the the temperature of the blood in the arteries comes down. I'll go a little bit deeper into what I mean by that. What I mean by that is, the molecules of the blood initially being warm would vibrate very fast. In the section in the leg of the duck where the arteries are very close to the veins, the fast vibrations of the blood molecules also rub off on the tube-like structures of the arteries as well as that of the veins, because of which the tubes or the arteries and the veins which are close to it also vibrate, and this vibration passes on to the cool blood of the veins, and hence the cool blood also start to vibrate quicker, and in this way the cool blood also becomes warmer, or in other words, the temperature of the cool blood becomes higher than it was before. So there is a transfer of heat from the warm blood of the arteries to the cold blood or the vein at the section of uh, the leg or in the legs of the duck itself, because the arteries and veins are very close to each other. And now this phenomena is also seen naturally lower down the leg. In a lower section of the leg, you would see that arteries have considerably lost a lot of heat and become cold, and the veins are also cold. But even at the lower sections of the leg, one can see that the arteries are relatively warmer compared to the veins. And here also in the lower section, there is a heat transfer from the arteries of the vein. Now what happens in the lowest section of the leg, at the bottom of the leg, near the feet, not in the feet, near the feet, most of the heat that the blood is carried from the heart into the arteries is passed on to the blood in the veins. So what happens is the warm blood in the arteries is almost coming close to the temperature, the ice on which the duck stands. So therefore, at the lowest section of the leg, it is the cold blood that enters the feet of the duck. And because the temperature of this blood is almost similar to that of the ice, there is no transfer of heat, or very little transfer of heat from the feet of the leg, from the feet of the duck to the ice. Let me tell you how this works. So whenever there are two objects of similar temperatures, it is a law in physics that the heat flows from a region of higher temperature, relatively higher temperature, to that of the lower temperature. And if the temperature difference is very small, very little heat flows. In this case, very little heat flows from the feet of the duck to the ice, which means the duck barely loses energy. Or in other words, the duck barely, or you can say the duck barely loses energy, and therefore it doesn't lose much of heat in the blood. So it is already cold in the first place, because the warm blood in the arteries have turned into cold blood, and it loses a little bit of energy or almost no energy to the ice. So the duck will become a little bit more cold, but it does not feel the chill of the ice, because it is losing only a very less energy. And this is because the temperature difference between the feet of the duck and the ice is almost same. Now the story does not end here. There is also blood that is going back to the heart through the veins. So what is happening to that blood? You have talked about the blood that is entering the feet. That blood has become cold, which was initially warm, and from the feet, the blood makes its way back to the heart through the veins. And then in the feet, I told you it's very cold. But in the legs of the duck, because the veins carrying the blood back to the heart are very close to the arteries, the veins are receiving heat, the incoming heat of the incoming blood in the arteries at the legs, and the blood in the veins are becoming hot and warm. So even if the blood in the feet is cold, the blood that is making its way back to the heart is warm, because the veins being close to the arteries are sucking away heat from the warm blood of the arteries in the legs of the duck. So in effect, the heart is pumping warm blood to different parts of the body. The heart is also getting back warm blood through the veins. So if this heat exchange between the arteries and the veins do not happen at the legs, let us see what happens. So the warm blood from the heart enters the arteries in the legs, and you told that there is no heat exchange from the arteries. We thought, we want to visualize or think about a condition when there is no heat exchange. Hot blood would make its way to the feet of the duck. There is no heat exchange. And therefore, a lot of energy transfers from the feet of the duck to the ice, which means the duck becomes really cold. the feet of the duck become really cold. This is also a case when there is a heat exchange, but the point here is when the cold blood returns back through the veins, since there is no heat exchange, it is the cold blood that returns back to the heart. And on the way, while it is returning back, it passes through the body. And this cold blood, almost equivalent to the temperature, the ice, is not desirable because it's very cold. Duck wants to remain warm in cold conditions. So if there was no heat exchange between the veins and the arteries, probably because they're not close, there would be undesirable levels of cool temperature in the body of the duck. So so from this video, in this video, I talked about how a duck is able to maintain its internal temperature and maintain its warm temperature in cold conditions. The duck also has another mechanism, but not that important, to ensure that the cold blood returning back to the heart of, in the veins of the duck from the feet is not too cold. And it's not that important, but I would like to mention here there is this mechanism that happens in the duck, but it's not able to do the job of sucking heat away from the arteries and making the blood cold, making the blood hot in the veins. And this mechanism is the duck restricts the amount of blood that is entering the feet of the duck. There is a way to do that in the duck. It restricts it. And because it restricts, there is less risk of the warm blood becoming cold because the feet are in contact with the ice. And if there is less cold blood, it is always good. The duck remains a little bit warmer than it was before. But this is not the most important mechanism that works. The mechanism that works to keep the internal temperature of the duck stable and warm is called countercurrent heat exchanger, and it happens because arteries and veins in the legs of the duck are close to each other, and there is a heat transfer from the arteries to the veins, and because of which the blood in the arteries become cold, and those in the veins returning back to the heart become warm, and the cold blood in the arteries are useful at the feet because there is very little heat transfer from the feet to the ice if the blood in the feet are cold. Feet is cold, and the duck does not feel the chill of the ice. At the same time, there is hot blood that is entering the legs as well as leaving the legs because there is a heat transfer between the arteries and the veins. As I told you, I would like to stress on that name of the mechanism, countercurrent heat exchange. It is called in the legs of the duck. This similar mechanism also occurs in other animals. Turtles and dolphins also have a similar mechanism going for them. They have this heat exchange mechanism happening in the limbs, those broad flat structures, okay, that help the dolphins and the whales to swim in cold water and swim in water. This arteries and the veins, the mechanism, are present close to each other in these flippers, those limbs that I talked about. And it is also present in a kind of a fox called the Arctic fox, which would have to stand on ice for a long periods of time, and therefore it is able to maintain its body temperature. It is a very simple mechanism, heat exchange mechanism, but it is a very effective mechanism that is occurring to let the ducks and the other animals survive in cold conditions. I hope you found this video interesting. I found it really interesting. Thank you very much.